Did you realize that legacy auto is actually who's paying for all of Tesla's AI data centers and compute? Adam Jonas from Morgan Stanley dropped a new note showing how Ford's ZEV credits of about $2 billion will go directly to Tesla. This is about the same amount that Tesla's used for its AI data centers. How ironic is that? Legacy Auto is funding its competitors' AI compute that will then kill them off for good with autonomous driving. Tesla has spent a total of $5.1 billion in compute so far, and over the last 3 years, Tesla has received regulatory credit revenue from its competitors of $5.5 billion. Let's take a closer look at this, and who's going to help me do that, using his magnifying glass. It's Brian White from FutureAza. Welcome, Brian.
It's ridiculous the ways you can slice this ZEV credit situation, and there's no wrong answers unless you're Ford.
Unless you're Ford, there you go. And Brian, you've done in your own channel at YouTube, FutureAza, you've done deep dives on EV, these ZEV credits. Can you just quickly explain before I go to the Adam Jonas note? What are ZEV credits, regulatory credits?
So it's, guys, we need you to increase the fuel economy of your fleet. And there's a bunch of ways you can do that. You can either actually hit the numbers, or you can pay a fine. Or I guess that's not fair. I tell you what, you can buy credits from somebody who has actually hit the targets. Well, what companies used to do, companies like Ford, is they would sell the Ford Focus. They would sell it at a loss just to bring the fleet average back down so that they would be in compliance. Well, the rules kept getting stricter and stricter, and you reach a point where the number of cars we would have to lose money on is too great. We're going to have to pay the fine. Oh, wait, we can buy credits for less than the fine? Let's do that instead. So we're going to just take a chunk of money and give it to someone, Tesla, Rivian, Lucid, and buy the credits because they're not polluting at all. They've got credits they can sell. And at one time it was 10 million a quarter, 30 million a quarter, but it'll never last. Well, here we are all these years later, and it's as big as ever, sometimes bigger than ever, because these companies that they're competing with just refuse to make their own cars. And so that money is transferred from people like Stellantis, formerly Fiat Chrysler, to companies like Tesla.
And what's ironic is, the legacy auto is paying Tesla for these regular credits. And then that money is being used by Tesla to create data centers and AI, which will then create autonomous cars, which will then kill off legacy auto. So
yes. And why is it fair? Why should they have to give money to someone else? Look, you guys should be spending that money building your own factories to make clean cars. But if you're not going to, let's at least give someone the opportunity to survive by doing what you refuse to do. So go ahead.
Yeah, Morgan Stanley dropped this note, legacy auto paying for Tesla's AI infrastructure. So incremental greenhouse gas emissions from global data centers through fiscal year 30 is 2.5 billion tons. So just the data centers themselves, equivalent to 2.5 years of carbon monoxide emissions of all US cars on the road. The growth of global data center emissions feeds the Tesla energy bull case while highlighting existential compliance risk to auto OEMs. So think of this, he said, is Ford going to potentially fund Tesla's AI data center growth? Ford disclosed recently, right, has accumulated firm commitments to purchase approximately $4 billion. This is Ford saying that we need to buy $4 billion of ZEV credits to help maintain their fleet compliance on carbon and monoxide emissions globally in years ahead. And then Morgan Stanley estimates that given Tesla's share of the markets where Ford participates, 50% of those credits will potentially be purchased directly from Tesla. So Tesla will get $2 billion. And then if you look at the end of second quarter 24, Tesla spent $2.5 billion of AI infrastructure. Therefore, in an effort to reduce emissions, Ford would purchase ZEV credits from Tesla, 100% margin, by the way, to Tesla, which Tesla would in turn add to its power-hungry AI supercomputers. Is it just us, or does that seem ironic?
It's I'd say poetic.
Nice.
The way we've always looked at it before is the $5 billion that they've paid so far, that Tesla has received from other manufacturers, was enough to build all of Giga Shanghai, phase 1 and phase 2, with enough left over to build most of Giga Berlin. That's like 65-70% of the company's capacity. Maybe 80%. I mean, it's a lot of the company's capacity. It's most of the company's production. You built our factories for free. And what do these factories make? Well, they make lunch and it's yours and we're eating it. Your lunch is delicious. So please give us more money and we'll keep doing it. The plan wasn't that companies like Tesla would take this money and invest it in compute. It was that they would take this money and do whatever. It's your money. It's real dollars. You can give it to shareholders as dividends. You can put it into R&D. You can use it to build more factories. And in this case, they're using it to build out AI, which is autonomy in this case. It is automotive autonomy, which we're going to find out real soon, just a matter of weeks until 10/10. We get to see what the future is and what all this compute has been up to.
The other irony is that the data centers that are being built will be creating greenhouse gases themselves or requiring energy. But I don't know if this is accurate or what Morgan Stanley is saying, because many of the data centers are being built on like near a nuclear power plant. And
yeah, it's energy is fungible within the grid. So any new demand you create means you have to have new production somewhere. And sometimes that production isn't as clean as you might like it to be. We do need to continue deployments of wind and solar, but states like Texas are surprisingly way ahead of a lot of other places. Texas has good wind and they've been good at selling energy for 100 years. So if they can find a way to make money off energy, they're going to do it. The beauty of a data center is with time of use pricing, the need to shave the peak shaving that you would normally see in an afternoon when during the duck curve, when solar production is too high, you could say to some second tier data centers, hey, if you want to fire up, it's really cheap right now. And they'd say, absolutely, we're going to go ahead and run some clock hours, a few billion of them if we must, and see what we get.
I think Tesla will probably will announce some sort of solar to support these data centers as well. So let's continue reading Morgan Stanley's note. So Morgan Stanley's sustainable team forecasts that global data center build and their electricity use will amount to 2.5 billion tons of incremental greenhouse gas emissions, 2024 to 2030, equivalent to more than 40% of annual U.S. emissions. So this is their table that they show. This is the generative AI, no Gen AI scenario. So the requirements for the emissions are actually going to rise because people are building data centers. And so, you're getting the money from Ford, but you're spending it on data centers, and that's going to generate more emissions. 2.5 billion tons of carbon monoxide is equivalent to nearly 2.5 years of total carbon monoxide emissions from the combusted gasoline of U.S. automobiles.
Sometimes you have to spend money to make money, and sometimes you have to use CO2 to save CO2. It's like anybody who's played a video game where they keep a score of your money at the end. You have to spend that money to buy the things that make you more money, whether it's a fruit stand or a tank or whatever kind of game it is. And this AI will allow for better trip planning, better resource utilization, better time of use. It's the whole point of it isn't to waste, it's to find ways to save, and it will take some carbon to do it. The beauty is, once autonomy is cracked to sufficient nines, that AI data center doesn't need to work on that problem anymore. And I'd love to be naive and say, well, they can then just shut it down. But of course, that's not how these things work. That's like that claim from the patent office 130 years ago saying, we're probably going to shut down soon. I think everything's been invented.
I remember that. That's fine.
There's always new inventions.
Mm-hmm. I like what you just said. Everything you said is perfect, which is okay. So they've created these data centers. Right now, it's ironic, but the data centers are going to solve autonomy. Autonomy then with electric vehicles, you don't have as many. So yes, it's going to be equivalent as they showed you there, and then they'll solve something else. AI will solve the sustainability issue, and they'll make everything much more efficient. So with an average of about greater than 2 internal combustion engine cars per U.S. household, the auto industry is an easy target for emissions regulation, but the rate of change in emissions from the growth of AI becomes more consequential. Auto companies may wonder if the carbon monoxide emission movements they are required to achieve merely make room for fast-growing emissions in other sectors. Yeah, that's what we just talked about.
It is fair. CO2 is a concern. Uh, but when I see people complaining about this, I don't see them complaining about spending a lot of time doing other things that are data intensive, a lot of cloud computing, a lot of you know streaming and whatnot. I mean, I'm not saying don't stream, you guys. Please stay on YouTube. I appreciate it so much. But everything has a cost. It's like when we're cutting down trees in Berlin to build a factory. So how dare you? First of all, terrible trees. You didn't want them anyway. Second of all, they replanted 3 times as many. And fourth of all, this is a factory that's cleaning your air and making your planet more habitable. If we have to cut down a couple of trees, it's a pretty good compromise.
You forgot third of all, by the way. Did you do
Did
that on
I?
purpose?
No, I'm
US.
a little under the weather. But
Yeah, gotcha. All right. So here's the thing, right? Gen AI development is a clear catalyst for growth in Tesla energy demand. Who's going to need Tesla energy? Well, all the data centers that everybody's building. So we wrote in June that Gen AI acceleration spurs a multi-generational increase in energy demand, electricity generation, and DC investment. Tesla Energy is uniquely positioned to benefit large investment opportunities for clean energy. We believe that Tesla's capability in distributed energy generation and storage, I'm telling you, they're going to get heavy in solar. You got the storage may hold some important cards in the evolution of the US grid as energy usage of compute and data grows. So this is their data center emissions is growing. This is the US, this is globally. And then you've got, so let's talk CERN Basher. This note came from Morgan Stanley, but CERN about a month ago actually already wrote this up. He says Tesla's competition has paid for Tesla's entire compute spend. So take a look at these numbers. Here's the compute spend that Tesla has already done, entire compute spend so far. So they spent 2.6 billion in computer equipment, hardware and software, 2.5 billion in AI infrastructure, 5.1 billion. And cumulative regulatory credits in the last 3 years, 5.5 billion. So where did they get the money to build this data center? Yeah.
Well, and if you add in the cost of power, it's still less than what they received in credits. The power is very expensive, but it's not $400 million. You can throw in a whole bunch of the salaries as well, and it's still free. So CERN's numbers are absolutely correct. And hey, man, if you want to pay me to eat your lunch, I'll do it.
This money has effectively paid for Tesla's entire compute spend since inception. Think about this for a minute. You have a company that makes and sells automobiles, taking money from its competitors to develop software that will make all of its vehicles autonomous, fully paid for by its competition. Once its vehicles are autonomous, the company's business model changes to a recurring revenue model, and all those vehicles that it sold for small profit are now capable of producing ongoing profits. This business model change will rapidly put the competitors out of business, especially if they don't license the AI-powered autonomous software they paid for.
Oh my gosh. Well, so a lot of auto manufacturers and really a lot of companies are saying, boy, ongoing recurring revenue, that's where it's at. We need to get into that. So GM said, we're going to do it. We're going to be just like Tesla with that recurring revenue. Where do we start? I guess premium connectivity. Is that right? But that's very low margin unless you're gouging your customers. And if you're going to lose repeat business if your existing customers think, boy, this company's just overcharging me for this. So GM's looking at it saying, well, we need to find something that people are willing to pay for on an ongoing basis. And they just don't have anything. Everything that's in a car, whether it's new technology or not, people assume it just comes with the car. Tesla comes with autopilot. That's fantastic. But there is an ocean of difference between autopilot and FSD. And FSD supervised is a whole different amazing beast that's worth what you pay for it, at least in my view. And I did not feel that way on the versions 11 and before. But on version 12, I will absolutely be paying for this because it's just that good. So what are these other guys going to do? How will they get their recurring revenue? They don't have a clue, and I don't think they have a chance.
The problem is it's going to get worse because you've heard Tesla, almost every automaker has made an announcement they're pushing off their EV requirement or goals, and then they've been begging the governments, the automakers have been begging the EU trying to say, hey, please change those, by drop dead dates and penalties. You know what the EU did just yesterday?
No.
They said, nope.
Oh, yeah. That's good. That's what I thought. That's it.
We gave you plenty of time. So this is an issue. Legacy automakers decided they're not going to make EVs. So this is going to continue, and it's just a downfall for them. So
and we're seeing it in the US as well. I mean, the same kinds of companies are pushing up against the same kinds of politicians.
Total capital expenditures for Tesla since Q3 2018. Okay. Tesla's funded $24 billion and competitors funded $8.8 billion. That's a lot. Yeah.
Oh, you guys, what are you doing?
That's 30%, 27% of total capital expenditures has been funded. So,
and if you look at that, if the competition's funded $8.8 billion, that means every factory since Fremont was free. That means all of their current compute plus their next year or two of compute is free while more money is still coming in. Ridiculous.
Okay. So, I mean, that's good news for Tesla, not good news for the legacy. Some people will say that's not fair. Why are they doing this? But the point is, I keep trying to remind everybody that it's a global warfare here. So
Tesla didn't make the rules. They're just following them. Every company is eligible to get those credits. If you and I wish to start an electric car company and we're going to sell even 10 or 20 or 50 cars a year, we will have ZEV credits that we can sell. So guys, stop complaining about someone else winning when you're not even in the race.
This is global. This is not just one country. It's every country. And then the more important one is China. So China, as we've been saying, they are full on incenting electric vehicles, like massive incentives. They are disincenting ICE cars, massive disincentives. And so they are the leaders in making smart cars. And it's like you can go ahead and say, hey, you shouldn't give money to Tesla. Well, doesn't matter. If you decided not to get into the EVs, you decide you can't make EVs profitable, you're in big trouble. You're going to blame, you point your finger somewhere, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because that decision, let's say they didn't give the money to Tesla at all. That decision, they're dead anyways. Chinese is going to just take over. So
yes. And it may just be that they'll start by taking over China, which they have, and then expand to other Pacific Rim countries, which they're doing. And then they're already making moves into Central and South America and Africa, places that don't have a lot of domestic manufacturing anyhow. And then from there, what does the U.S. do? Just become just a strictly domestic brand? Do the European players only sell in Europe? Guys, these factories will then move into your countries and eat your lunch. It's just, I guess I'm hungry is what I'm saying.
And it doesn't matter how many, the tariffs that they're applying in Europe, for example, to BYD, they're still going to be able to enter.
It won't matter because they'll be in your backyard and there are no tariffs from your backyard.
Thank you so much, Brian. That was fun with you. Appreciate you. These are big topics and you know quite a bit. If you want to learn more, go check out his channel, FutureAza. He does a lot of great deep dives. He does it for every single car company, and he does it for each of these topics like this. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate you very much. Bye, everybody. I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.